first of all, gentlemen, thank you so much for everything that you all have been doing and helping us come together to do this thing called the Fireside Chat. I'm pleased that out of us three, this particular chat, I'll be the MC. I'll be hosting it. So first, I'd just like to introduce everybody that's here for our audience that's going to be listening or even watching. You know, we've got myself from Makoto Flow Limited here based in Japan. We also have Glenn Rogers from New Direction Solutions, who's based out of Southern California. And then we've got Kevin Spencer Smith based out there in South Carolina. So today's question that we're actually going to be talking about is going to be, what is the one thing that if you could share insights to some CEO, some consultant, or whatever it might be, that would help create value for TPS and deliver the right results, what would that be? But before we answer that, I think we should tell our audience something that's really important, and that is, why did we decide to choose a fireside chat? I mean, I think between myself and Kevin, and we were talking about, you know, fireside chat. This is what people need to hear. This is the value, the knowledge that they need to hear. But then I did research, and it came up that, you know, President Roosevelt was doing this back in the 1930s and 40s, you know, to keep America informed. And I guess maybe that's what we're trying to do: keep people around the globe informed of true, you know, the spirit and intent of TPS, the Toyota Production System, or the Thinking People System. Yeah. So why don't we just try to ignite some energy around the globe and answer that question? What's that one thing that people could do in business that will ensure that they will be able to achieve that value that TPS and Lean produces and delivers to their clients? What do you guys think? Who wants to go first?
I'll give it a shot.
Go, Glenn. Yeah.
Well, I think it's pretty important that you have good top-down leadership. And when I say that, you know, based on my experience in dealing with top leaders, whether they're CEOs or whether you're working with directors, is that they have to have an understanding about what it is they want to accomplish. And I think they also need to make sure that they tie it to some kind of an annual operating plan or something that relates to what the business model is. I think too many times we see people just go out and do lean activities and think that when they're doing that they're doing lean, and yet they miss that connection between what top-down expectations are and at the same time relating it back to what needs to happen and take place on the floor. So that also requires, in my mind, a certain amount of education of people at that level, because a lot of people don't have that experience, and yet they're caught in that role. So now they want to do some kind of a lean or transformational exercise within their facility. They also need to understand, what does that mean? And I think that's where there's a lot of education that has to take place before they can really truly say, okay, here's what we're going to do, and then make sure that everybody is on the same page. So if there's any question when the activity begins, that we know where it comes from. It comes from the top, and here's why we're doing it.
I can double down a little bit on what Glenn just said. And I think in this day and age, what companies do and manufacture in a competitive market is very comparable. The products are comparable, the services are comparable. And I think what's going to differentiate a company is their customer value. What else can they provide to their customers to differentiate themselves in the marketplace from the competitors? And I think it's imperative, as Glenn was saying, the company needs to know why it's doing lean. And I think, so to me, the first thing that a company should do before they jump into a lean program is determine what their why is for doing it. And essentially determine that, you know, what are our problems that they're facing? Why are they at this decision point where they think they need to take a lean journey?
Yeah, what is that burning platform that, you know, that is going to help us propel us forward?
What's driving this? Not fine. A lot of companies don't know that.
No.
So what can happen is they hire a consultant, hire a company, or bring in a program, buy in a complete lean system. And where they're going to start first? Traditionally, where they're going to do it? They're going to throw it right on the shop floor in manufacturing. But what if their problem that they've got has got nothing to do with the customer value of the product?
Yeah.
So they're going to spend the first part. This is not a program that we all know this This is not something you switch on and it works overnight.
Right.
It takes time. So I think if you've got to determine that, and maybe their real problem is in customer service.
Yeah.
So maybe lean initially, the Toyota production part of it initially needs to go to carpet land first.
Yeah. Yeah.
To-
And, you know,
to
I
stop
think
it.
you're really nailing it on the head, because when you think about it, whether you're in service or whether you're in pharma or whether you're in manufacturing, lean isn't TPS. When I say lean, and I think all of us, when we use the term lean, we're actually talking about the Toyota production system.
That's all
We're
we're
not
going to
talking about
Yeah.
this facade out here called lean. Yeah.
Right.
We're talking about the real principles, philosophies, and
Yeah.
practices of
Absolutely.
Taiichi Ohno and so
Yeah.
on. But
That's right.
but the piece that I think that both yourself, Kevin, and Glenn, you brought up, of having that strategic imperative, is you've got to quantify it. Yeah, it's got to be something that says we want to be, you know, we want to go from third in the market to the second in the market or first in the market, or
Right.
we want to 3x our business in the course of the next year or 3 years. We want to, you know, whatever it is, it has to be very quantifiable. And if we go with your scenario, Kevin, you know, like in many service industries, it comes down to it's customer service related. Then that means we have to propel our ability to say our satisfaction of our clients and our service providers, as well as our customers, has to rise. We have to do something exceptional. So what is preventing us from doing that? And we should use those philosophies of TPS to bridge that gap, to make it better. And I've seen this. I've worked in you know, some high-end Las Vegas hotels and casinos where they've taken it and successfully applied it to make sure that the experience that the customer is engaging in is one that is a wow factor. It really is.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
Yeah. So I
And
totally agree. Strategic imperative. That's a very important one. Yeah.
And I think you made another point too, is you already made a transition between manufacturing and service, and recognizing the process works just as well for service as it does for manufacturing.
Yeah.
You know, that it's that notion that a process is a process, the process. It doesn't matter what it is, that there is some way that when you tie it back to a strategic initiative, that you can improve it and make it better for your company, your customer, and for all your workers at the same time.
Yep.
Very true. Very true.
Yep. Absolutely.
Very true.
Absolutely.
Kevin, what would be your one thing, you know, what would be your one thing that people need to do for TPS
Training.
lean to deliver?
Training. I don't like the shotgun approach of lean. I realize, and I think it comes down to a misunderstanding of the Toyota production system from a very long time ago when we first introduced it, when Norman Bodak, who by the way just recently died.
Yeah, bless his soul. Great man, legacy.
Yep.
I hope we can do justice what he was doing.
So do I.
Yeah, fair enough.
When he first introduced, because he's credited with introducing through Productivity Inc., he's credited with introducing lean to the US and to the West. But I think the early adopters, you know, Toyota trains its operators in a see me do type deal. They didn't believe in the classroom training for its operators. They put an operator with an operator doing the job, believing that the person could actually follow those motions without the person teaching them. And that's how they created the original standardization. And I think because of that, somehow we've construed that to, if we're going to put in a lean system, a lot of management, senior management that want the system, don't want to spend the time training people
Right.
in the lean principles. And that is an error.
Yeah.
Because at Toyota, the system exists. So when they're training people, they're training them in a system that exists. But when you're introducing a system, you can't train people blind. You can't be the consultant that's going to live with the company for the next 50 years,
Right.
and what to do every day.
Right.
So I think it's imperative that a train-the-train program goes in, a train-the-trainer program goes in, and there's some training up front, and people know going into each event they're going through, as they go through the steps, as they value stream map, they know how to value stream map. You train them how to do it. They understand what they're seeing on the wall when you create it, and they understand how to take that wall version, the paper Kaizen, into a formal Kaizen that they can now hold in their hand. And as you step through the foundation of the Toyota production system, and you step into standard work, which is also foundational, that you stop and train people, because let's face it, VSM, value stream mapping, is very easy to teach and train. It's very easy to grasp. But from there on, the tools all look simple until you say go do.
That's
Yeah.
right. Yeah.
Yeah.
And if you have not taught them how to step through these tools, then I think it's a significant roadblock, and I think it's going to slow down.
Yeah, and Kevin, I really like what you just said there. And when I was actually sitting down with Kato Sensei, and he was sharing with me, by the way, Isao Kato is the father of TWI within Toyota. So
Right.
they grew that buddy system of learning into a formal training within industry kind of standard, and setting the stage, making sure that things happen. There's an old saying that, for 30 seconds of work, they give you 30 days of training. So they make sure you know how to do it on the side of the line before you actually get on the line. And when you actually do finally get online, and it might be 10 days, that you get that 30 seconds of work, you have 90 seconds worth of work. So you've got to go through several iterations of learning different things. But the key, I think, what you shared is that the educational component is not stressed enough within the deployment of any of these systems that are being utilized today, that people call, lean or TPS.
Yeah.
The truth of the matter is that when you want to educate and grow people, you got to take a systematic approach to it. And the second piece to that is you got to know exactly what you need to train them on. And that's why TWI is so powerful within Toyota,
Right.
It's so profound. But I think the other piece to that I'd like to add value with is when we're growing and educating people, that really means that we're investing in them, So when we think of TPS, we really think of good thinking, good products, or thinking people system. So we want people to come into our business, and we want people to come into our service entities, manufacturing entities, whatever they are. We want to create ambassadors and change agents out of them, but we also want them to think, what can we do that will make it better? Once we understand the standards, not to go in there and say, you know what, I can do that better, without even understanding it, and that's what happens a lot too. So I think that kind of level of maturity of learning also needs to occur.
Yeah. I from my own experience too, training is very near and dear to my heart. And it's interesting, Kevin, you make a great point about how Toyota does it by having people train other people. When you come in from the outside, or even if you're just learning how to do this for the first time, which was the situation that happened to me when I first learned all about all this, the mantle of training was thrown to me. And it was like, you have to train all of our people before we go out and do anything, because we were using Shingajutsu at that time and running about 5 teams, 8 to 10 people at a time. In order for those people to be effective, they had to understand the tools. They had to know how to work them. And I learned from training in a prior life that when you train somebody, you need to use whatever that tool is immediately, or whatever the knowledge is. And that, of course, if you lecture them, 10% if you're lucky, so I tried to make as much of it hands-on as I could. But I think the point I'm trying to get to is that whatever tool that I had to teach them for that particular team, they used immediately.
Yeah.
And they were able to maintain that tool once the event was over, wherever they went. In other words, wherever their workstations were, or wherever they were working, they now had different eyes to look at. Before, what they were just accepting, they were no longer accepting anymore. So their lives began to change as a result of it, especially since, as part of we talked about the strategic initiative before, that getting people to understand and allowing them to make those changes and realize they're doing it in a positive way, not only makes it better for them, but it also makes it better for the process and the customer and the profitability of the process as well. So I think training, I don't know how you do it without training, but you also have to have that string that says, there's a reason we're doing this. And there's a purpose for why we're doing this, and understand that when we're done, it's only going to make us better, and we're going to continue to go on to wherever that takes us.
Well said. Well said. Yeah, agree. And I guess if I were to answer the question totally in sequence, I would say definitely strategies. Number one, have that imperative for it, for what you're going to do with lean. Yeah. And then number 2 is then begin to educate and grow those ambassadors of change agents through well facilitated events and
Mhm.
activities that are hands-on, yeah,
Mhm.
that are
Mhm.
very hands-on, because this isn't PowerPoint by death. This isn't, you know,
Right.
training in a module and then you're certified afterwards and you take a test. No, this is, you got to be able to apply it. It's all about the hands, right? The
Yeah,
do.
that's right. That's exactly right.
I think the third thing is, and unfortunately in today's industry, because everybody's digitalizing things, I believe that we need to really focus in on the right digital solution. Um, uh, if I were to look at TPS, I would say that Toyota is looking to minimize what they can for people, but always have that interaction between people and technology. And what we're trying to do in many businesses, almost eliminate that people connection, because we're adopting these digital solutions, or, you know, RPAs, robotics, whatever it might be. Yep. So the industry 4.0 that's currently existing, I think it's really confusing a lot of organizations, and executive teams, as well as leadership teams around the world, need to step back and say, let's stop buying the latest, greatest things. Let's figure out what our system needs, the
Yep.
one thing it needs to propel us forward with our strategy and organizing our people along with it. So that, I think it melds really nicely together. And I've seen that happen in many different industries, you know, especially with the, you know, the adoption with these virtual meetings and so on and so on. A
Right.
lot of people are now stepping up saying, hey, this is the digital solution we need to get to our clients, you know? So
Yeah.
what's your all's thoughts on that?
So I'm gonna drift this one a little bit left,
Yeah.
because 3 weeks ago, I was involved in a Kaizen that used digital technology during the Kaizen because of the environment of the workplace.
Yeah.
You couldn't just put a Kaizen team without several weeks of training in this
Right.
environment.
Right.
So, and to monitor the activities in there, this company's got a tremendous digital camera system inside the workshop.
Yeah.
You can put 3 cameras from 3 angles down on a single workstation, zoom it in. I mean, you can see everything.
Yeah.
And for me, it was being old school. Gemba for me is the real place, as you know.
That's right.
And for me, a Gemba walk has always been a Gemba walk.
Yeah.
And if you're in Kaizen, you go to Gemba.
That's
Yeah.
right.
Well, you were in a Gemba where you can't let people go to Gemba.
That's right. Yeah.
So suddenly we were faced with, and we had a couple of young guys, high technology, 22, 23 years of age, and pull up their laptops, and then somebody brought in the links to get to these cameras. And before you know where we are, we're in a Kaizen environment on large screens, watching the activity as if we're actually there. And I realized within about 30 minutes that this was probably one of the most significant events in a Kaizen Gemba that I've been in
Absolutely.
many years.
Yeah.
Because in the top left-hand corner was a timestamp.
That's right.
So I could actually use the tools as if I was on the shop floor.
Yeah.
And they're as clear to me as you two guys are right now,
Yeah.
what they were
Absolutely.
doing.
Yeah, I
And-
love that. I love that you mentioned that, because, you know, working with casinos, there's cameras everywhere in the casino.
Yeah,
right?
that's right.
So
That's right.
you could just get the right camera settings, see the entire pit that's happening, to see how you can optimize that pit, right? So I
And-
totally agree with you. I mean, there's a lot of
For me,
validity.
it was
in the right
just,
digital
it was like, whoa, I just walked through a new door.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Good.
Yeah.
And the other thing that was really good, how many times, Glenn, have you gone to a shop floor? Have you gone to Gemba, catching a sequence, catching a work sequence, gone back to the room where you're going to start to use this data and go, damn it, I didn't see him change the sequence.
Yeah.
How many seconds was that? Well,
Yeah.
the thing is, with these cameras, they're recorded nonstop.
That's right.
So you can suddenly jump back on there and you can wind back to where you were, watch that timestamp and go, got it.
There it is.
I mean,
There it is. Yeah.
And it
You
didn't
know,
take,
I
it didn't
love
take an hour to do it. It took a couple of seconds.
I love it, because, you know, in the reality, I mean, whether you're doing, you know, changeovers or SMED, you got to less than that 10-minute mark.
Right.
You use videos. You actually tape things.
That's right.
You know,
Yeah.
and when I do Kaizen events, I tell them, listen, I want you to go do a time study, but I want one of you to actually tape the event of us doing the time study, so that we can have the different angles of what's happening with this particular process that we're really looking at trying to improve, right?
Yeah.
So, yeah, I believe technology is definitely something that we can
As far as I'm
maximize.
concerned, an old dog learned a brand new trick.
Yeah,
Yeah,
that's right.
And then immediately went back in time in my mind to different events around the world where this technology would have been so
Would have been
useful
great.
because
Yes.
it leans out the process of lean.
Yeah.
It ensures that the lean is a lean process.
It's a-
yeah.
But
In another avenue with that, and I guess when we first started talking about this is kind of where I went with it, was there are so many different programs that are out there now to help execute on the shop floor,
Yeah.
or your service or whatever it is. And whether it was Oracle or some type of an MRP process. And I can remember early on when I first learned all of this, we were shutting those off. And we
Yes.
were using them to keep score with. We weren't using them to execute with, right?
Yeah.
Right.
But there's more of it out there now. And I'm the first one to admit that if there's something going on that I'm not aware of, I'd like to know what it is, just to be able to understand how can it help me out. And it's similarly to what Kevin, you're talking about in terms of, well, I can certainly watch what took place. Is there something else where a system like that can help me, whether it be with movement of goods and services, or inventory, whatever it is, that still doesn't, in my mind, violate the rules of being visual whenever you're doing things, and being real time. Because that's really what this is about. It's being real time, knowing the computer has always been as good as its input, right? And it's only as current as the last time it was input. So you always have that caveat to work with. So my question is, what else is out there? Because I honestly don't know.
And I think that's where I was actually going to go with some of my digital solutions. I think that an organization that has the right strategy, is organizing their people, and select the right digital solution will go far. But here's what I'm learning, at least over the past, maybe a year and a half, is that most of the organizations that I'm working with around the globe, they can't see into their organizations.
Yeah.
They're still working off of Excels, shared files on Google, but there are systems out there, business management systems, that allow you to use that digital solution to be able to see what's happening in Georgia compared to what's happening in, Chile, and compared to what's happening in Mexico on the events that they're doing, the supply chain, on your audits, on your standards that you've put in place. I mean, they actually exist. And fortunate for me, I have a partner up in the UK that has that solution. And I'm not here to promote that per se. I'm saying that companies really need to be able to see into their business.
Yeah.
This is not about, doing some sort of chart and showing the chart and say, hey, look what we did. No, it's about actually seeing how this is sustaining over the weeks and months after the events have occurred, after the activities have occurred, after the imperative has been put in place, and you've decided where to start and when and why. Yeah. So I just think that's an important component as well to the executives around the globe that need to look for that. Yeah. So, hey, you know what? Great first chat. I think, in summary, I believe we all agree that the three things are strategy, people, and the right digital solution. Yeah. Not many things you need to do. You just need to focus it correctly. And I think that would give everybody the right step forward in making the right moves to deliver the right results. Yeah.
I agree.
Great. So, hey, let's do this again in about another week or two and see how it works out.
Can't wait.
Yeah. Well, thanks for your time, gentlemen, and good luck, and we'll see you on the next Fireside Chat.
Indeed.
All the best. Bye-bye, gents.
Bye, guys.